Let's go to work, 'cause I'm tripping. Gotta work on myself, 'cause I'm falling apart. Please wake me up, 'cause I'm slipping. Can't fight this feeling off no more. But I'm not going to give up and fall. Rise above the door. Need all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all. I'm never ever gonna hide no more. I come to love myself again. Yeah. For all the things I didn't know, the pain, the hurt, I let it go. Start to believe in myself, and life will be sweet again. So sweet again. Above it all, meet all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all. I never ever gonna hide no more. I come to love myself again. For all the things I didn't know, the pain, the hurt, I let it go. Let it go. And I start to believe in myself, and life will be sweet again.
True here. Wow, that's bright. Wow, that's bright. Good to see you guys. Wow, that is scary. Oh, forgive me for scaring you. That was scary. That was scary. Yeah, there's all kinds of weird. I gotta fix my lighting. What can I tell you? Wait, I'm not muted. So that's good. But yeah, we're doing all kinds of new things around here, and I appreciate your patience. Run a little bit late today because of the new restream things. I think that people are now watching me on different platforms, and I couldn't have stopped it if I wanted to. In fact, it looks like some of the titles didn't get updated, but that's okay. I have a show to you today is The Birds of Ancient Greece. The Birds of Ancient Greece. And as soon as I do this one thing, which hopefully will help the lighting, maybe... Man, that's still burnt out, though, isn't it? It's like really burnt out. Man, it was fun doing radio. I don't have to worry about this. Anyway, yeah, I wonder if we do it like this. Let's try this one more time. The Birds of Ancient Greece is going to be a stream that really ties into the blue... the blue stuff that we've been talking about. Some of you call it purple. That's fine with me. But the shades of orange and blue came later, and language proves this. Audio is probably okay. Yeah, everything's new right now. So if anything's not, I'm going to be looking to say, stop saying, okay. I don't know how to do that. You know, I bet there's an AI filter. I bet you there's an AI filter that will remove the uhs. Oh, wait, does count? Does it feels like is more socially acceptable than Let me know in the comments. Call in. We have a new phone number. I don't know whether I'd tell it to you right now. If I had more time, I would have put it up in a graphic, but maybe someone will put it in chat. But yeah, you can call me. You can leave a note telling me how I should stop saying things. I appreciate it. I don't like it when I clear my throat either. All these are confidence energies. You know, might as well talk about it. I'm going to forget that I'm trying to say and here in a second, and then I can just get back into being myself. Sorry. I think it's good practice. I think it's a good adjustment. The ahs and the ums, it's funny how I can say it if we're talking about it. It doesn't feel the same way, because the ahs and the ums that you hear people employ, including yours truly, would love to know if the audio is good. I hear you on the everything else, but that would just be fantastic. But the ahs and the ums that you hear typically in your daily life from others, because you don't do that, only other people do that, right? You're not conscious of it. These are you creating. There is a lot of nakedness in silence. One of the biggest parts of being naked in silence is watching someone take it away from you. When you are silent, the amount of respect, not respect as in you are better than me. I'm talking about the amount of witness saturation that you thank you. The amount of witness saturation that you employ is directly measurable by the amount of silence you were allowed to put into the room. Do you see what I mean? There is I have a pretty good, let's be honest, I got a pretty good silence distance. I got a good long throw on my, it's like a driver. I got a nice one wood when it comes to silence. I can hit silence farther than a lot of people. It's just true. I think it's because I practice. I think it's because this is what I do. And I also think that what I do really makes me nervous. And those come out as a result. Why does it make you nervous? Mostly visual. Get a lot of complaints about, or I hear a lot of complaints about how I might look. And that's one of the things that I don't really know how to change that. I know a lot of you guys are like, you should groom obsessively. And I think there's a bunch of people out there that are grooming themselves. And I think it's great. I love this hobby. I love that I get to watch people do this hobby. Seriously. I think it's fabulous. If we weren't doing that, it'd be great. I also think it's a hobby. I think it's something that people just do. They're just like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm into grooming. It's like, oh, where are you going? I'm going down the store to get me some grooming supplies. Oh, really? That sounds, yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, I'm going to cut my toenails with a device that I saw on late night TV, bitches. I'm going to condition my hair. I'm going to remove my split ends. I'm going to shave certain parts of my body, but not shave other parts. And those parts will determine how acceptable I am. This is a great game. Seriously. It's a great game of peekaboo. It really is. It's like, I want you to look here, not here. I want you to look here, but also here. I want this part of you to seem much longer than it is now. I've been really, really perplexed by the waist. We have a belly button and then we have a waist. These are very different areas of the body. It's true. When I buy pants, everyone wants the waist to be where the belly button is. They want the belly button to look out, but to have a place to rest its chin as if it's doing an eye test. And I am more like, yeah, but the undercarriage curve of my belly is, and that's where your waist is. That's the keel of it all. And a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people think that is not how you should wear pants. And I'm like, I think pants are dumb because of this. I just think pants have a lot of problems just across the board. And now that we've eliminated boot cut pants, you've taken all the flair out of... The only reason why I was even into pants was that at least you had some bell-bottom things to express yourself. You can express your opinion through the ringing of the bells. And seriously, this cannot be underutilized. Bell-bottoms are a flotation device. If you fall off a boat, let's say you're in a party boat, you fall off. Let's say there's an Israeli Mossad operation, and the boat's been commandeered to take it to a certain island, and you had to jump off and to save your life, so you did, and you had bell-bottom pants on, you'd be able to tie those babies together, create a flotation device. Yep, sharks would come by and go, dude, you were hip as fuck. And you'd be like, I know, I'm not ready to go. If you were in skinny jeans, you'd be begging the shark to come by. The shark would come by and go, oh, wow, look at that. You're wearing pants and they're skinny jeans. Oh, my God. What has happened to you? As he's kind of swimming, he's kind of dog paddling around because he feels sorry for you. He's like, do you mind to help you out? Do you mind to help you out? Do I have a show? I was probably lying to you. But I do, actually. I want to put forward to you the idea that the birds of ancient Greece, the early Greek language, ladies and gentlemen, that birds taught humans how to speak before humans learned how to talk. As I've told you before, the colors were much simpler then. Whether or not they existed in the world is a discussion for another time. The point is that the conscious mind did not have the resolution as it does now to perceive things on such a scale as to give you things such as orange or purple. These colors are blue. These colors are on the outside spectrum. Their neighbors are red and purple. Red is the Malkuth, the lowest form of visible amplitude of acoustic signal. Acoustic, I'm using in a very broad term. Electromagnetic wave is something that you and I really cannot perceive, but you and I can picture a bass. And that bass, the lowest bass you can hear is red. It's this kind of a thing. And you have to listen for a while. A bass solo is very difficult to play because you need to allow more space between each pluck, even before sound even comes out. Or I should say before sound is consciously perceivable. Because the sound comes out, but we're talking about a different thing. We're talking about a perception. The conscious growth of color and sound carried the same pathways, and these same pathways led to a linguistic evolution, a new kind of species called linguistics that existed in the meta that you and I know now as language, or music, or number even number. And so I'm suggesting to you that the birds taught humans how to speak before they learned how to talk, because the very birth of language itself is song. You might think that we learn to sing after we learn to speak, and I'm telling you that we learn to speak after we learn to sing, and that what we are speaking now is just simply a different version of song. A kind of song that has a alternating current to it. It's an alternating current that's a little bit different because it carries the waves of propaganda, which some of you might think is a bad word, so just replace that word with information. And that this information is utilizing the alternating current part of this communication in order to create telepathy. And so the birds have been teaching you telepathy the whole time. There's a link in the description to a wonderful article, and I've pulled some of the things out of that article specifically to show you right here. And I cannot think of the name of that article, and if someone in chat would look at the description and put that name in here, I could then say it without having to like reset the screen and do all kinds of crazy things. But these 4 verses are showing you the musicality of language itself. And this would be known officially as iambic meter. And that these iambic meters would be expressed simply by the rhythm, the difference of the rhythm of it all. And so we begin with the iambic dimeter, which is the expression from Cunningham, Meditations on a Memoir. It's not important what these verses are. It's important how they sound, which it goes, who knows his will? Who knows what mood his hours fulfill, his griefs conclude. Ba, 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. We hear something deeper in this rhythm. This rhythm creates the exact same kind of phenomena that I spoke about on Dojo Earth Radio. If you missed it, it's okay. But the idea of something being peculiar is a 2-pronged hypnotic spell. The first prong is what I am telling you will end soon and will have a resolve. This is the first thing that it has. The second is you do not know when that will happen. So it's a hypnotic state. This is a hypnotic state that I give you, and you think it will resolve because the rhythm, because the rhythm carries it. It creates a spell of information inside of you. It's okay. And you are hypnotized because of those. You're only hypnotized because it instills 2 things. One, that this will resolve somehow. Resolve is a very broad term on purpose. And 2, you don't know when. So you know something for sure, this will stop. And you know something for sure, and you know not something for sure, which is when. And these 2 things, this is the heart of all seduction, my friends. This is at the root of all forms of seduction that we employ with each other. This is, I think, why this kind of rhythm, this iambic dimeter persists. And if you think about what the birds are teaching you this very first lesson, which is how to hook someone. You hook with the idea that there is a resolution, which is an invention, quite frankly, that wasn't there before. There's no such thing as resolution until I was to start this pump and tell you that it's coming real soon and you are waiting for it. And this is the hypnotics of certainly of music, but it's so much deeper. I'm telling you, this is the hypnotics of all signal. It is the idea that you are about to solve something and you do not know when. You are about to receive some sort of constellational firework in your brain. It could suck. It could be great. It doesn't matter because you're hypnotized by the resolution of it. The Jack in the Box is a kind of attention. It is the way that you hypnotize a chicken if the chicken was yourself. You hypnotize yourself using these tools all the time. Iambic trimeter. How frightened you were once. And not so long ago, when late one night we took our pathway homeward through the churchyard where you saw gray gravestones row on row. Same concept. It is a rhythm of threes, right? 3 feet for every trail. In this case, there are 6 trails. It does not matter. It's just a coincidence. Although, if you understand the meter, you would know how many lines you would have to have before you could even establish the pattern of meter. So really, this is pattern recognition. All of this is pattern recognition on a very deep layer. This youth too long has heard the break of waters in a land of change. He goes to see what suns can make from soil more indurate and strange. Iambic tetrameter, iambic pentameter. I rang them up while touring Timbuktu. Those bosom churns to whom you're known as who? Without these rhythms, the early man needs primary colors, primary hooks, in order to practice their pattern recognition, yes? Your child grows wiser because it's learning pattern recognition at a very young age. It distinguishes the Nile first. There's a black liquid coming into me, it sees, and the black is just simply a difference in colored or texture, let's call it, than the rest of the womb. The umbilical cord is the Nile, is it not? And this umbilical cord is sending this blackness, which is why we call it the Nile. And as this is the embryonic fluids that are outside of your that are inside your placenta, that you were swimming next to, would slowly develop into the Red Sea, because after you learn the idea of just brightness, that which is black is separate from that which is not. The only evolution would be to take your toes out of black and place them into the realm of red for the very first time. So the very first color is red. So the red is giving you the gifts to begin counting, because now you have 2, as Pythagoras says. So black and red are 2. This is the beginning of all number, which is the beginning of the division of colors that we have. The zodiac is already teaching us how to divide things, because this is pattern recognition. The stars are teaching you pattern recognition. The birds are teaching you pattern recognition. Nature is teaching you pattern recognition. See what I just did there? See what I just did there? I don't think I've said in a while. I don't think I have. Zephyrillus, James, get a hold. Wait, you were bitching a lot, Zephyr. Man, I'll let you stay, but man, maybe just don't bitch. Have you thought about that? You guys, have you thought about just not bitching, Zephyrillus? Have you just considered, hey, maybe I'll just take a cork and stick it in one of my Taurus holes. It don't matter which. James is very flexible. Maybe I should just do that. And then I'll enjoy going, hey, my cork, my Taurus hole is stuck. And then all of a sudden you'll uncork it and then you'll feel better. This is the magic of stretch. Stretching the spirit, baby. Stretching the spirit. So you got the meter. You have this thing slowly teaching you. But something bigger has happened, my friends. Something bigger has happened. Something bigger has happened. Number one is an evolution of two. Number one is perfect. He goes to see what sons can make. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. He goes to see what sons can make. It's beautiful because it has both rhythm or scansion and meaning or sensation. Don't worry about those words, guys. I'm done with words. But don't worry about remembering those words. Just remember that the verse on the bottom is harmonic because both its signal and its meaning fit into the same meter. He goes to see what sons can make is a two-step. That's one. But in addition to the two-step, each word, the meaning of each word is also broken up perfectly. So it's a primary signal. Nursery rhymes, fables, tales are primary signals that are given to you in meter and in meaning congruently, because the birds have already taught you the pattern recognition. And so you can align with the pattern recognition and find a different signal that, quite frankly, the birds do not have. And that different signal is a conscious meaning. The consciousness is flowing inside of the recognition, but you're blaming it on the meter itself. Well, that's very complicated, so we'll skip. But it's a lot of serious magic is happening here, because watch what happens. Beauty branches into rhythm and meaning. It evolves, my friends. It evolves. Consider, we read this earlier, but I will say it again. I rang them up while tour in Tim Buck-2. What just happened? You have some dissonance. You've created a minor chord of meaning. You've created a minor chord of meaning. My audio's glitching? Oh, that's too bad. Wait a minute. Am I getting a text saying me that? No. Audio glitch. No glitch here. I'm sorry to be paranoid, but it really could be restream, or there's so many things new. I'm just going to keep going. I'm sorry. You know what? I got a good recording here. So, but thank you for letting me know, seriously. And I like to know as I'm talking. So, you're not interrupting, you're helping. It's a little bit bumpy right now. We got some new things going on with technology here. So thank you for watching James True. Do you see though how now we have two branches? We have a rhythm branch and a meaning branch. The rhythm branch is still there. I rang them up while touring Tim Buck-2. It might not make sense there, but it does when you look at it in here. I rang them up while touring Tim Buck-2. Those bosom turns to whom you've known as who. And so you have the ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. So you have both of these kinds of things, but now the meaning is different. The meaning is this. I rang them up while touring Timbuktu. That's hard. You know what it's as hard as? It's as hard as a minor chord. It's as hard as a major chord. It's as hard as an augmented chord. When you're used to major chords and someone throws in something chromatic, you're like, what the fuck is that? And that's what this is. So we've created a single strain of propagation used by birds, and we've turned it into a sentient, cognitional, propaganda, telepathy machine. That's what we did. when you combine two simple things and shift them ever so slightly, you start to notice that you can hear two different signals at the same time. And only when your brain is starting to process multiple targets does the pattern recognition turn into cubic stereo recognition. This is important. It's one thing for us to have a phonological loop. This is the thing that's memorizing 8675. And that recall is just decompression. There's a cultural decompression that occurs that your brain definitely taps into because it's able to piggyback off the calories of everyone else. And all it has to do is remember 8675. And if it sings it out loud, another bird, whether they like it or not, will have to say 309. They will have to say it. And you've now just decrypted the rest of the thing just like a JPEG compression works. Oh, God. This is what JPEG does. JPEG predicts what the pixels should be after they're decompressed. I swear that's what happens. And how does it do that? It has a community-based algorithm that it says, hey, if you got a bunch of black in the sky and I show you gray and then nothing else, you can just fill those pixels in with gray, man. It's all good. It'll all work out. And the photo's like, are you sure? JPEG's like, are you sure about this? And the compression's like, trust the latency, my friend. Trust the latent space of this whole thing. As Pi says, right? I mean, Pi frickin' nailed it. Dude knows what he's talking about. If you don't know, you should check chat. Always some wise things coming through. Love you guys. There's a phone number you can call, but we'll get to that later. So as you can see, this is a two-pronged signal that we didn't always used to have. We did not used to always have this signal. What is Morse code? Yeah, A is a dot and a dash, if you didn't know that, and B is a dash and a dot, dot, dot. And C is a dash, dot, dash, dot. And D is a dash, dot, dot. And E is a oop. James, what was E? Oop. And F is a that's an F. And I'm saying and you're listening because there's an amplitude here. There's something in the signal that is giving you pleasure, and that pleasure is propaganda. You believe that you're onto something. You believe that you've tapped into a code, and there's a special message being sent by the squirrel on the other side of the forest that's flipping his tail going, and what you hear is something annoying, but what the squirrel's doing is telling you the fable of the Iliad. He's telling you the whole thing. But you don't need the whole thing. You just need 3/4 of it. Now you, the squirrel, are actually just building it in yourself. And this is something we do not notice about each other, that we stop listening and we start hallucinating after 8, 6, 7, 5. You are not listening. You are hallucinating. You are hallucinating. If any of you are too young and you don't know what that numbers mean, I don't know if you have a soul. God, I just said that. I just don't know. That's all. I just don't know. Let me show you something. Let me play you something. I'm pretty sure this is the right one. No, it's this one. I want you to just listen to this. I think that's important. I want to make sure that the audio works on this too.
And then it's a question of working out how the instrument was played.
So this is,
I think you can hear this,
an aulos, or a double pipe. And it's made of deer bone. And the reeds are made of Mediterranean cane, grows everywhere like a weed. And it's a single tube, which you delicately scrape and heat up and squeeze and clamp. It's quite wide bore compared with later double pipes. The other instrument we play from maybe 2 or 3 centuries later is made of wood and has a narrower bore. This one is a powerful instrument for outdoors, accompanying 50 singers in the temple or in a dance. So the tones that it produces It's fascinating. They clearly didn't want a great big range because, as you can see, they're similar length. And they basically are one note apart. So you've got one going la da 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 da, and the other one going la da 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 dum. And that means there's lots of overlap, and you can play games with the dissonance between the two pipes that you wouldn't be able to do if they were offset. These instruments give us a range. You can't, it's basically an F sharp, a little bit below an F sharp, an octave. And that is, it lies beautifully with the other ancient evidence. So it really supports the reconstructions of the notations. So yes, when I accompany the Orestes chorus with this, we're able to play it at the same pitch it was written. It took a long time to figure out how to do that because the two lowest notes aren't available on a single pipe. So by switching the F sharp and the G between the two pipes, I can actually play the melody. So there we are. I'm sharing the la da 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 dum. I can play the bottom note here, and I can play the next note there. But I don't have both of those notes on both pipes. So it's got to be shared.
Okay, so this is like the early version of stretching the mind. The double pipes is pretty much most of the art you're going to see in Greece with these pipes. It's two pipes, and there's basically like a half step. He says a whole step, a half step, or we'll say a whole step, a step in between each note. I think he means a half step. I really do. I just think he's just trying to talk to TV. And I hope that you can understand that this would be exactly the kind of schism sound that we would need to see in order to start discerning more than primary colors. That there would come a time when we would want to practice discerning rouge and puce and peach and pink out of red. And that we would need some sort of mythological guide that would take us to that place. And I think that culture's doing that. The fashion of culture always knows what would dilate you as a human. And the dilation is really where you learn to discern more of the signals between each thing. So this is, it's a teaching instrument. It's prying open the clam. And there's a pearl inside. Probably get copyright stroke for this, but I think the video, or striked for this, but I think the video will at least stay up. And I just want to take an opportunity to say thanks, patrons, for making this possible. Really close to the very bottom of what it takes for me to run this show right now on Patreon. And if you guys could join right now, it would help a lot. It would get us all through the next month. A lot of great research, a lot of great stuff's coming on. We've added a lot of cool tools that are, although a little bit bumpy right now, will serve us well, especially if we can keep the airship going, if I can keep some fuel in the tank. So I encourage you to join Patreon right now. Gives you access to a lot more content, a lot more special sauce and whatnot, and it allows me to do things like show you things that I know are going to get copyright stroke, which is, I think, important because I want you to understand how this works. How this works is, in early ancient Greece, So first of all, this is not the fault of academia. The not knowing this is not the fault of academia. The Bering Strait is a theory that for a long time we've said, well, people got to America because they came over the Bering Strait. And that actually is an assumption of what science was saying. What science was saying is we have evidence that people came across the Bering Strait, but we don't have evidence of anything else right now at this point. This makes people say that scientists are lying or wrong or covering up or whatever. And it's the process that covers it up. The process comes through the legitimacy of being able to point to evidence that honestly isn't real or true. It's just simply harder. There's a belief, there's a clergy that accepts certain evidence. There's a clergy that accepted Piltdown Man. That clergy fell through. That faction of the church collapsed inside scientism, but it took 80 years. So for 80 years, everyone insisted that Piltdown Man was the missing link, and it was a hog bone. It was the jaw from a hog. And for 80 years, it sat in the Museum of London. So I'm not even defending science, but I'm telling you that the process of this church of scientism is actually using scripture, but in a very tangible way. It just means what we say we believe is that which we have scripture for. And the scripture for that comes in the form of PubMed, or comes in the form of papers that have been peer reviewed, or you would hope so. Now, I've shown you in We Have Much to Unlearn that even the peer-reviewed papers, over half of those will turn out to be false. I've also shown you that most of the lab results that people come up with is actually not able to be repeated. If it's not most, it's at least 40%. It's a very, very high percentage is what I'm trying to say. So this is not... I want us to understand what science is. I don't want to defend or bash science. I want you to understand what it is. It's a special kind of religion that has a clergy that's just based on, can a majoritarian confirm something? That's really what it is. I have a theory, and if you can repeat my theory, then you can confirm my theory too. And both of us get to pretend it's absolutely true because both you and I got the result. And as long as we have enough people that have done that, we just made a fact. Boom, we just made a fact. So the inability for us to look back and see what ancient Greece was really like is not really a tool that you would ever be able to rely on science to give you. You are going to have to compassionate the evolution of consciousness itself and use that as a cipher, because we do not have a brain atlas of what the brains were like in ancient Greece. So I can't prove or disprove to you how many rods or cones were being used by the opsin, really. It's the chemical that's determining colors. It's not necessarily the rods or the cones. This is our closest understanding of it, kind of like when we said that the heart was a pump and it didn't run on electrical charge. This is just what happens when you build anatomy before electricity's been invented. So when we look back at ancient Greece, this is why I find it so fascinating to consider that Homer didn't use colors except for when he spoke about how red the oceans were, how wine red they were, and how they looked like, and blood in the ocean looked the same. So the color of the ocean water and the color of blood were the same hue. This to me is profound because they still have poetry, they still have ideas, they still have religion, but they don't have colors. The colors are subdued. They become ancient rituals that only certain priests know. Dendara is one of those examples in Egypt, but seriously, it's just one. You certainly had purple cults that were rubbing this special color that probably looked gray to everyone else except for those who recognized it. This would be a pretty freaking amazing magic trick that you could employ in the middle of the day as you're walking through the city. It's really no different than the Ash Wednesday. The idea of rubbing the ashes on your forehead is the same thing. In fact, they probably came from the same place. But how do we get there? This is what fascinates me, because when I look back, I see these steps that have been left in the mud of ancient Greece and all these other things. And we have to understand that how we use language right now is so much more complex. We have a forked tongue. Our tongue is forked because we can speak in propagation and or we can speak in meaning. And I think really this is at the heart of lying. With that said, I hope this will give you a closer idea of how simple-minded the language was. The soul, I think, was huge, but the comprehensive ability of the phonological loop when it comes to pattern recognition is really showing how underdeveloped it is in this little clip. Let's watch.
So, in a stress accents, that means I'm sort of holding it longer rather than changing the pitch. It would be poi, ki, lof, ron, athan, ata, fro, dita, pai, dios, dola bloke liso my se. Me asaisi me oniaisi damna. Hot nia sumon.
She is speaking as closely as she can in Morse code intonance, because back then the concept of stress, we stress different words. We emphasize different words with stress. Our intonation of each word has a certain kind of grip on it. And the amount of pause we have helps convey that grip, but the intonation of it is a pitch that is fluctuating between the word, and she's telling you that that did not exist. She's telling you that the stress that we employ could only be conveyed through pitch. Through pitch. Why? Because this was a simpler signal, guys. This is just like the colors. You're watching the signal of the voice do it too. Let's see if this helps you understand what I mean.
Suffix stanzas have a very repeating pattern. So they start with what? The first metron. So each line here is called a metron, in plural metra. They're related to the word for meter. It essentially means just the first chunk of meter pattern. So the first pattern we see in Sapphic stanzas is called a trochee, which are meter patterns that start with a long, short, long, and then an ancaps, which can be either. So it's like da, 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 either. So that's a good way to understand it. Then we have a chorium for the second metron, excuse me. So
she's talking about the various beats that basically exist in each one. And I believe this is where she...
pitch with pitch meter, which is an entirely different thing. So I'm going to be raising my tone on the longs. And
this is probably closer to what it actually sounds like. Listen to You can tell she's doing great. She's really shy. I think this is probably more accurate, and it makes a lot of sense if you think about it consciously wise. It's too complex of a signal. You're going to need an 8K brain to hear the way I say different words, because I can slow different words down and speed different ones up, and each word has its own song inside of it because of the intonation of each word. This is complex. This is 8K stereo, 4-channel, and 4 tracks have not been invented, so we are still on the single channel, which means if you want to convey a simple version of meaning inside of this AM signal, you're going to have to compress, because this is a different wavelength. It doesn't have the same kind of resolution to it, which means you're going to have to convey your longs and your shorts, your dashes from your dots, in pitch. Now, she does not nail this at all, but I think technically she's showing you what it sounds like, and that's what I wanted you to hear. It becomes impossible. Guys, it's the same reason why I tell you the Vatican is full of sex toys that are in the catacombs. It's embarrassing. It's not secret underground technology. I mean, I know that'd be a lot more exciting, but it is secret underground technology, but it's sex toys. And the shame of what that is not going to make it in the light of academia. So too is the ill attempts of modern, even places like Oxford, to convey to you what this is like, because their job is ultimately to be the cream of the crop. Their job is to be the fashion. It's just a different kind of fashion. It's an academic fashion. What I'm saying to you is that I'm about to show you something that scientism thinks Greeks sang because they don't have any proof of the anatomy that I spoke about. Because they don't have proof, they assume it's not there. So they assume that we were just as conscious now. We have the same conscious resolution now as we did back then. And it's not only is it horrible, it's actually embarrassing to think that this is what our number one university thinks that this sounded like, because there's no opportunity to consider that consciousness was simpler then. And most people are making this mistake. Huge mouthful what I just said. Hopefully this will convey. Just listen.
This is a sound that hasn't been heard for 2,000 years. This is ancient Greek music, as we think it was actually sung around 400 BC. I'm an associate professor of classics at Oxford University, and for the last 5 years I've been concentrating on reconstructing the sounds of ancient Greek music.
So you just watched Oxford try and modernize what it sounded like. You're listening to them try and sing like a Def Leppard song with the lyrics, and they're trying to fit the lyrics in. And honestly, I think the conductor had them go that fast because it's just awful. It's just, they know they're not doing it. I think that Barnaby, one of us sadly decided to say this is just gay, which means you can't really just like enjoy that. We have to think about it in a different way. But like Barnaby really nailed it on you, showing you how the two pipes work. The idea that those pipes were like half a signal away is, I think, a closer look at what was actually happening there. Keep in mind that even the lyre, these guys at Oxford have the strumming lyre, and they're using it with metal strings. But the lyre back then, these are like guts, like pig guts. So it has much more of a banjo-y kind of a sound. And if you think about the twang of a banjo, you're seeing two different notes that are kind of squeaking up against each other, which is giving the brain practice to start to discern between two different signals that are in the same place. So what did it sound like then, James? Because if Oxford couldn't nail it and that girl in the red dress was too shy, what did it sound like? And I think this is probably the closest that you'd find to that. I think so. Me and my sweetie went to the Parthenon in Nashville. Highly recommend the place. I just decided to throw some video of that on top of this because this would be the closest you could get to, in my opinion, to listening to what consciousness was hearing at the time. What it was hearing was not necessarily a story. A story would only be for those who have the advanced kind of consciousness to interpret what the signal says. Birds don't necessarily need to hear the song, to understand the song, to repeat it. The comprehension is not necessary. You and I will sing lyrics that have nothing at all to do with what the actual singer is singing because they're not important. We're not reading that part of the signal. We're editing just as any artist edits. We choose which parts of the signal that we want to listen to. Whether it be, oh, you need to get your mods in order, or whether it be this guy looks this way, or whether it be me going, I hope I look okay for today. These are all different frequencies of the signal, and each of us are choosing different berries along the way, which is ultimately expanding our appetite for consciousness. And I think you end up with a almost autistic kind of digestion later on, where you're seeing a new branch of humans that their phonological loop is now been cubed. So it's not just a signal with 8 channels, it's 4 different 8-channeled signals. And that would look very different socially. It would require a lot different consciousness when it comes to making eye contact, just as an example. And as you're starting to raise up into those things, it could be that things like dyslexia, things like ADHD would all be just natural normalizations that we employ because we're clinging to an objective, singular reality. Because it's just right now there's too much noise everywhere, This is probably what it sounded like.
Mä massaisi doniaisi tamna potnia tymon. Alla tyydyk aipotaka tirota. Tassimassa odassa joissa pälloi. Iklyis patrooset tumon lipoissa. Kryssion ältis. Armhippaasede uksaisa kalloide saagon okkiöst ruutoi pirigasmillainas pykna tinnintes pteroporannoitiroosed ja misso aipsadeksi kondo sitomakkaira mediaisaisat hanatoi prosopoi ääre otti teute piponto, kuotti teute kälämmi, kuotti maailmallista tyloginistai, mainolai tymoi. Tina teute pitho, apsagenis van pilotatta, ti saapadikkäi. Kai garai peugi taki osdioksi. Ai di dora mä tiket alla dossi. Ai di mä pille taki ospillassi. Koki tilloissa. Ilki moikkain niin kalipandillisson. Ek me rinnan ossa timoi tillissai tymos i merre tillisson sydauta simmakos isso.
Yeah, a drunk Vietnamese guy is definitely one way of trying to convey what that sounds like. You're hearing that pitch has to convey long, short. It doesn't, even if you're not looking in. There's a tradition where you have. I think actually I have a slide of this. There's a condition where you have long. In Greece, where you have three kinds of, you have ANCAPs, you have short, and you have, this is not a very nice slide. You have ANCAPs, you have shorts, and you have longs. And just for our annotation, the short is transcribed as a U, a long is an underscore, and then an ANCAP is an X. The ANCAP is there because it's so important to maintain this meter, that you have letters that are on the end of these sentences, of these metatrons, as she says, or metrons, I think. Excuse me, I think she called them metrons, so we'll try and be as precise as I can. But then on the end of the metrons are these ANCAPs, these ability for something to be long or short, and it's purely based on how where you are in the passage and what's required. So the flexibility on meaning itself starts to give a little bit more artistic freedom for the very first time. So you could think about it like if you were in a canoe and you wanted to suddenly start to introduce the idea that you could turn the canoe to the left or the right. The first time you do that, you're going to lose a lot of people. They're not going to be able to comprehend that. They're going to fall off the boat. So you begin with gradual leans out of that singular signal. Remember, this singular signal that we're talking about of beauty. Why do I call it beauty? Because nature is dilating you, which is why you would propagate what is dilating. You would propagate what is dilating. I use the word dilation here because it's not just beauty, it's terror too. So nature is using the ability to dilate you to create this harmonic branch of a new signal. She's giving you a new roadway to where you can put your own meaning into that. And she's showing you how to do that by learning the meaning of others. So you have the dilation of the story itself. This is the content of the fable itself, and then you have the delivery of this thing. The actual delivery of itself comes with its own meter in order to keep you not just interested, because interested really means keeping you receptive of that signal. So you and I don't know ancient Greek, so we don't know that that was the hymn to Aphrodite being read. We don't know the story that's involved, but we notice that others around us in our community, they know what the story is involved, and they start to tell us these things. And suddenly we are learning through our brethren, just like squirrels teach other squirrels, just like 8675 teaches the rest of the population is starting to understand meaning in something because our neighbors are now dilated by the story of this hymn, by the story of the Iliad that's underneath it. So the fable itself becomes the honey which allows the propagation to spread. This is the nut inside of the acorn, would be another way of sort of considering this. This would be how we are learning these things from a simplistic kind of binary that goes further. Isn't it beautiful that A is a dot dash and that looks like how you'd start an A? And B is a dash with dot, 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 which would be how you draw the letter B. And a C is a dash, dot, dash, dot. And a dash, dot, dot would be conveying this idea of a half circle. And a D is conveying the idea of a half circle, but it has a wall on it. And then you got E, bop, just too many intersections to list them all. And so you start to uncover the meaning behind these things, which is teaching you how to read ancient Greek before you even know. This is how we learn. It's the dilation that's inside. What is inside this thing? Oxford just wants you to come to the concert. They want you to come to the chapel. And in order to come to the chapel, they couldn't sit there and do you know what would happen if you came to the chapel and instead of Barnaby there playing his pipes and instead of them going through this speed metal, this is basically, they're trying to like turn this into speed metal. If you heard this. And I think the fact that it's slower is absolutely crucially important, which is another reason why I think Oxford got it so wrong. I think this had to be slow. This had to be very grindy. This had to be just very chanty kind of a thing. Because the amount of joy probably that was found just on the idea of predicting that there was some kind of resolve and all I have to do is stay on board because the honey would not mean as much if I did not know what was happening so far. And so I have to introduce things in the propagation like princess, magic sword, evil Sarko of Kuyancho, and the land of Kuyancho is ruled by a dark lord, and all those things are paying you to slowly learn to discern the shape between two pipes, a note that is never played. Teaches you all. What have I told you about the eighth gland? You're missing the eighth gland, and that teaches you all. It teaches you everything that you need to know. Everything, except for the phone number. There's a phone number you can use to call into the show. And if you call into the show, you can leave a message. And it could be that one day we will start to play these messages on air and respond to them. But until we actually have people that are calling, I can't do any of those things. So consider the number. James, what is the number? I haven't seen anyone post it yet, but I've posted it everywhere. It's it's going to be in Patreon. It's going to be at the top of. There's a community post on JTrue. There's a community post on Dojo Earth. There's a post on Twitter, and there's a post on Substack. All of those have that number, and that number you can call it anytime you want. It doesn't have to be during the show, and you can choose to leave a message, and you can say whatever you want. I will screen it. But there's a good opportunity that some ideas could could come to the show that way. Also, I want to invite everyone to check out Dojo Earth. We did a open mic night Saturday. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for everyone who tuned into that. I think actually I'm broadcasting on Dojo Earth right now because I didn't know how to turn it off. So, but yeah, Dojo Earth would be also a great place for us to move the discussion after the show and do things like that. I just can't do that right now because I am on my way out of town. We are having a gathering this Friday in Portland, Oregon, and you are invited. It is in a wonderful space. We're going to bring back the Greek Salon. There's also a skating party. The festivities begin Thursday, 3/6. It's 369 Day. This event happens once every 9 years. So some people have been asking about the schedule. Thursday night, sort of like a meet and greet, kind of like we'll all hang out. We could go roller skating. I say we could because it might be that maybe we go roller skating Saturday instead. Really flexible on that. But basically, we'll be gathered in one of two places that are a couple miles apart. So I wouldn't worry about that as far as like being able to find us. Secondly, Friday day, I'll do a book signing during the day. I'll be hanging out. And we'll do a lunch if patrons are around, want to do something like that. I want to pressure you guys. And then Friday evening, we'll have our event at the salon. I think at 6 o'clock. I'm just throwing this out. 6 o'clock, I'll do something a little bit more formal. So people who are nervous and want to have a purpose as to before they come, then you should come at 6. And then you won't feel that you shouldn't be there. Although you should come early if you feel that way. And then like experience the inadequacy of not saying not saying right? You only have a few opportunities to practice this stuff. You really do. And our mods, if our mods are being too hard on you, there's practice too. So, but if you do feel that you've been mistreated by a mod, it's a great opportunity to call the phone number. Dan, thank you so much, Stretch. Thank you. 1-510-630-1404. That is 1-510-630-1404. I would love to hear your thoughts, even on the show, about any show. It doesn't matter which. And maybe we'll be playing those next time. So I will be streaming, but because I'm traveling, I have no idea what kind of schedule that'll be. But I hope that you learned something today about this whole concept. In fact, I seem to recall that the description, the ancient Greeks spoke like birds because stress was an unconscious emotion. The emotions... So when I say the emotions were not online yet, we were emotional, but just like Bacchus, when you were inside of the emotion, when you were drunk on Bacchus, you were not conscious of who you are. This is what I'm suggesting. And that one of the reasons why you had the revelry that was happening every month and the chasing of the dildo, literally, was because these opportunities were conscious pressure release gauges from the practice of ego, and that every month you could slip into being drunk, which really just turns you into an animal again. You just go back into the zodiac as a kind of beast. And so this is how how horoscopes began. You would relate first. If I slipped into Bacchus, I would probably relate more like a bull with a Venus rising. It would be the animalistic part of me that's expressing itself. Okay. And so as this is why we have scapegoats. This is why they were taking the worst among them and burning them as witches. But before that, they were burning them as pagans. And before that, or Christians. And before that, they were burning them as pagans. And before that, they were just, dude, you're too short. We need an excuse. This is the oldest medicine in the world, is slipping into animism. If you slip into animism, you can do awful things to each other. So when you think about how far we've come, emotions have always been there, but we have never had the awareness to be conscious of them. It took us creating another tumor in our frontal lobe, the place where we lie, honestly, that we can go and crawl. You move your association, your assemblage point, into the front of your mind, and for the first time you can look back at your hindbrain, i.e. your spirit animal, i.e. your zodiacal animistic personality, and you can look at it objectively for the very first time. What gave us this ability? Nature, slowly dilating us with beauty and terror, until we learned to tell the difference. Once we started to notice the difference between beauty and terror, we have our Nile and we have our Red Sea. we have these two different places now, and these things teach us everything. And it ends up with two pipes, two reeds playing music that is dissonance on purpose, because the dissonance is its own kind of education. I just told you that dissonance teaches you everything. And you're living in a world that insists it must be perfect because, quite frankly, dissonance scares us.
It's